Imitating students becomes second nature when one spends enough time in the same room as them. Things started poorly for Dan and didn't actually get any better. On his first day of work, he spent so long pottering around the house in the morning that by the time Craig woke up, Dan was going to be late. Craig realized this and decided to help Dan get safely to the train station. So off they went together. Unfortunately, 5 minutes after they left the house, it started to rain. Not just rain, but pour. Craig managed to borrow an umbrella from a nearby shop and gave it to Dan. But by this stage, Dan was already soaked. As chance would have it, the umbrella that Craig gave to Dan was broken, and so when Dan went to open it, he cut himself on some exposed metal and started bleeding. This might not have been a problem, except for the fact that Dan didn't realize he was bleeding, and managed to wipe blood all over his white shirt. So there was Dan's first day, 3/4 of an hour late, sopping wet and covered in blood. So it was pretty much all downhill from there. In typical Nova fashion, Dan had been placed in a school that was over an hour away, when there were 2 schools within 10 minutes walk. Dan lasted 4 months. By this time it was autumn. The leaves change in Japan like nowhere else on earth. Showing me around the autumnal beauty of Kyoto was my first Japanese friend Masako. She was a Nova student with whom us teachers were forbidden to fraternize. Apparently, a couple of Canadians had come over a few years ago and impregnated some schoolgirls, so Nova didn't want any more bad publicity. But Masako's and mine was a platonic friendship, and one that opened up Japan for me in the way that only making a local friend in an alien land can facilitate. Hers was a traditional family. The line could trace back their ownership of a rice field for over 1,000 years. In this traditional family structure, it is the role of the father to pretty much work, eat and sleep, literally. In the traditional Japanese family, it's the mother's job to do just about everything that pertains to running the household, raising the children, making the decisions, and controlling the finances. It's not unusual for a husband to actually not know how much he earns, nor where his socks are kept. Obviously, this is not the case for all, and Japanese society is undergoing rapid change, but it is a tableau deeply at odds with the facile notion that Japan is a male-dominated society. This was not the only surprise. When one unfamiliar with Japan contemplates life in the land of the rising sun, I suspect they think of the stereotypical temples, robotics, sushi, Mount Fuji and austerity. Seldom do they think of a country where humour plays a central role, but in fact, it's apparent to the keen observer that for many Japanese the compensation for a regimented life lies in the consumption of or the production of humour.